Okay, we're up to Lamed Aleph, Amid Aleph, the second line from the top. Tan Rabbanan, Sukkah Gezula, a stolen sukkah, and someone goes ahead and is Mesachik in Rishus Rabim, that coins if he steals Rishus Rabim, he doesn't have the right to be there. Rabbi Eliezer Paisel, Rabbi Eliezer says the sukkah is puzzle. The Chacham Machshirim, the Chacham say it's kosher. We have to see. We saw before in the Masechta that a stolen sukkah is not good. We'll have to see the difference. Bez Hashem will see. Amar Rav Nachman Machloikis. When's the Machloikis that Rabbi Eliezer says it's no good, and the Chacham say it is good? B'shetoikev es chaveroi, where you physically take your friend, you take him out of his sukkah. So now you're on your friend's sukkah on his land, right? And now the question is that a gezel or not? A person can't be yotze with his friend's sukkah. So there's two possibilities how to view this sukkah, fellas. Once you force your friend out, it's either a stolen sukkah or a borrowed sukkah against the person's will. Again, those are the two ways to view it. You can either view it as a stolen sukkah or as a borrowed sukkah. If karka nigzeles, if the din of karka, meaning you become a baal by the karka, just like by metaltalin, then it will be a karka, then it will be a sukkah gezula. If, however, karka ain't an nigzeles, that karka is not gezula, it's always in the reshus of the owner, so you didn't steal it. So what are you? You're a shoel, you're borrowing it. So either way, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it doesn't work. Why? I karka nigzeles sukkah gezulahi. V'inami karka ain't nigzeles, and if you're going to say karka is not stolen, sukkah shulahi, then it's a sukkah that is borrowed. And Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eliezer l'shitasei says a person is not yotza in a sukkah that's not his. The Rabbanu say it's kosher. You could be yotza with the sukkah of your friend. However, you can't be yotza with a sukkah gezula. So therefore, the karka ain't an exelis. Karka is not stolen. The sukkah shulahi, and in sukkah that what is considered a sukkah she'ula. It's a sukkah that is borrowed. Now we saw earlier in the Masechta, right? We saw earlier in the Masechta that the Chachamim said that a sukkah gezula, in fact, is not good. A sukkah gezula is not good. And where do we see that? If you look at Tes Amid Aleph, it says, Gedilim Tasalacha, we did this the other day, at the bottom of the page, Hachanami sukkah Tasalacha, L'chol Shem Chaycha, when we buy L'me'ute sukkah gezula. This is to be mayed a sukkah gezula, a stolen sukkah. Okay, so it says that one sukkah gezula, is it possible that a sukkah that's stolen works and one that doesn't work? There's a difference between stealing a sukkah, fellas, that is intact and a sukkah that is not intact. And we're going to go introduce that right now. Says the Gemara, Aval gozel eitzim v'sikech behen. If you steal wood and you go ahead and make a sukkah out of it, Dibri Akol, everyone would hold, Ein loy ela demei eitzim. The owner only has the worth of the eitzim, and the person would be what? He would be yaitza. Let's see the Rashi on this, guys. Rashi, go down a little bit. Aval gozel eitzim v'sikech behen. Ein zu, this is not, loy gezula, v'loy she'ula. In other words, it doesn't belong to the previous owner. Why? The kanehu b'shinoi maisa b'shinoi Hashem. You kaina this sukkah with shinoi maisa, the change from eitzim, and shinoi Hashem from eitzim to sukkah. V'oid, and we'll get to an oid in a second. Okay, so guys, basically it's a very, very simple concept. Can I be yotze with somebody else's sukkah or not? That's machlokes Rebbe Eliezer and the Chachamim. Like Rebbe Eliezer that I can't, so it won't make a difference whether it's stolen. It won't make a difference if it's what? If it is borrowed. You can't be yotze. The Chachamim said you could be yotze with the sukkah of your friend. However, that's provided it's a sukkah that is she'ula and not gezula. So if I take my friend, I throw him out of his sukkah and I go in, isn't that a stolen sukkah? And the answer is karka ain't an exeles, meaning wherever it is, it's in the rishus of the owner. You can't steal it. Now, we had it the other day with the avankri, cutting off the hadassim. That when they're attached to the ground, they're not stolen until you go ahead and physically remove them, and then they're metaltalin. So too over here, there's no gezula. It would only be she'ula. Now, there is a hecha timtza where it's no longer the previous owners. There's a hecha timtza where it no longer belongs to the previous owner. It's yours. How is that? You go ahead, you steal the eitzim from the owner, and then you go ahead and build the sukkah. So now, even though the wood belonged to the previous owner, l'chari he's miyayish on the wood, then you have a shinei maisa through the act of building into a sukkah. So therefore, it no longer belongs to the other fellow. You have to pay him for it. The may eitzim, you pay him the value of the eitzim. But even Rebbe Eliezer would be moida there, your yaitza, because it's not sukkah shel chaveiro anymore. It's your sukkah. It's your sukkah. There is another din over here which we're about to be introduced to, which is called takonis hashavim. We know there's a mitzvah of a heishav esegzela shegazal. There's a mitzvah of labanita class. Say if a person steals something, he's supposed to return it. As a result of returning it, he's menatik the he doesn't get malchus. Sometimes it's very difficult to return something. The classic case is stealing a beam, building it into your house. So what are you going to do? You're going to go ahead and knock down the house. So the Chachamim there made a takana called takonas hashavim. In order to allow the person to do tshuva, will say he doesn't have to restore the beam, it's enough to give the money back. So who adin by this sukkah? This sukkah, when you steal the eitzim or a beam and you build it into the sukkah, during those 7 days, the sukkah is considered kfa, right? Why we spoke out that the 7 days of sukkah, you make your house aroi and your sukkah kfa. So if once it has a din of kfa, meaning set, so then you have the takonas hashavim kicks in. That means you only have to restore money. Once I only have to give back money, this sukkah is not considered sukkah shel chaveiroi. And even Rebbe Eliezer would be moida that what you would be yaitza. Benji, you have your hand up?
Do you need yesh for this also?
Yeah, but stealing your l'chayra not. I don't think so. I think.
But then
I don't think it depends upon yesh. I don't think it depends upon yesh. Okay, but again, the key to the sugya being, is it your friend's sukkah or not your friend's sukkah? That's the key. Again, if it's stolen, it's not your friend's sukkah. If it's borrowed, it's not your friend's sukkah. Rabbi Eliezer says, therefore, you're not yotze with a gezula and you're not yotze with shula. The Chacham said, you are yotze with your friend's sukkah, provided it's only she'ula, borrowed, rather than gezula. And now we just introduced a case where, even though it's an act of gezula, it's an act of stealing, it no longer is your friend's because you acquire it. And therefore, it's not chavero, and even Rabbi Eliezer would be maida.
Is there a way to steal a whole sukkah? It's not possible at the end.
Yes, it is. In fact, the Heicha Timtzer is you steal it, it's on a boat.
I see that later. I saw that later.
Here's the case. The problem with stealing a sukkah is it's attached to the ground. Anything that's attached to the ground, you get into the machloikis whether karka nigzelis or not. In other words, fellas, let's say somebody throws you out of your house and you can't get back in, but that land is your land. That house is your house. You have right now. In other words, it's called your house. Whatever the halacha is regarding him paying in this, it's still not his. It's yours. It's yours. So a sukkah is attached to the ground. How do you ever have a case where you could steal the sukkah? L'chayrev karka ain't an exelis, and that's the way we paskin that karka can't be stolen, and anything attached to the ground has a din of karka. So how could you ever steal a sukkah? Answers Rashi on this daf. I think let's continue that. This Rashi that we're going to continue is going to answer your question. It's going to answer the question. Okay, so we're in the middle of Rashi. V'od mishum takonas hashavim. Okay, where it's Rashi dimer masel aval gazleitim b'sikach behem. If you go ahead and you have eitzim, right? Rabbi David, how are you? So it's nice to see you. David now is in Baltimore, guys, a lot closer than Edmonton. He's thawed out. And there still has those girls.
Baruch Hashem, Uncle Isaac, how are you?
He's finally out of the freezer.
Good line. Good line. Okay. So, guys, again, you guys, you have the sugya, you have what we're talking about? I'm doing a lot of talking. Are we good here? Okay, just for those, just one more time. Let's go through the whole thing together. Beis machlokes, can I be yaitza the sukkah with the sukkah that belongs to somebody else? Says Rabbi Eliezer, no. So whether there's two ways it can be belonging to somebody else. You stole it from that person, or you borrowed it from that person. Either way, like Rabbi Eliezer, you won't be yaitza. Like the chachamim, you would be yaitza provided you borrowed it, but not if you stole it. Not if you stole it. Now, how do you ever have a stolen sukkah? If karka ain't an exeles, so the chora, it's hard to have a stolen sukkah. What's the case of a stolen sukkah? So that's what we're about to see. You steal it, it's on the boat or on the back of a camel. In both those cases, or a wagon, in both those cases, it's not attached to the ground. Since it's not attached to the ground, Aryeh, it has a din of metaltalin. And you can
one attached to the ground, you can never steal.
Excuse me?
A regular sukkah, you cannot steal. Those
No, a regular sukkah you can't steal because it's on the ground and we did kaka and exelis. But you hear the echetimsa.
I can walk into anybody's sukkah and use it.
Again, if you hold you can't be yaitzi yichiv with sukkah shel chaver like Rabbi Eliezer, you can't. Like the chachamim, you could. But now again, he didn't lend it to you if you just walk into the sukkah, right? So we have a rule that a person is usually happy for a person to do a mitzvah with his thing, but I think the halacha is that you just can't use a person's sukkah unless he gives you rishus. You can't just use a person's sukkah unless he gives you rishus.
It's not gazelle.
Meir has his hand up. Meir, you can have your hand up. You need your mouth open. I can't read lips.
Now, how's that? Okay. I don't understand the question of how's it possible to steal a sukkah because it's karka. Isn't the main part of the sukkah the schach, not the walls or whatever it's attached to? It's just the schach. Schach is mobile.
Schach is not mobile if it's attached to something that's immobile.
But if it's attached to
In
something,
other words, and again, we view that as being attached to the ground. We view it as one entity. You don't separate like this part it doesn't move and this part does move. I mean, the walls are just as movable, Meir, as the schach, aren't they not?
yes.
Okay?
But you could make the walls from something that is attached.
You could, but we don't say that. We say it by any sukkah, not only by a sukkah that is strong, right? Not just an iron sukkah. You'd say it by any sukkah that's in a gazula. It's attached to the ground. Okay. So very interesting case, and this case will illustrate, guys. This case will illustrate this yisoy that we just said about stealing the eitzim and making a sukkah, and saying that it is kaina. What's the case? Hahi sapsa. There was what? Did I skip? I skipped. Just like Rishus Rabbim. Again, the case above was two cases. We said Gezula and Mesachik Rishus Rabbim. So we're going to make a tzushtel comparison between the parallel cases. Just like Rishus Rabbim, the karka doesn't belong to you, and Sukkanami lav karka dedehu. The sukkah doesn't belong to you, and therefore it's a case where you stole what? Mashma, guys. So go back to the top of the page. 2 lines from the top. Tanrabanan, Sukkah Gezula, Vamasachik Rishus Rabbim. So just like Rishus Rabbim is not karka that belongs to you, so the Gezula is not karka that belongs to you. Therefore, that's the case of Gezula that doesn't work. On the other hand, if you stole eitzim and you made sukkah, then it would work. Hahi Sapsa. There was this old lady, the Asla Kamed Rav Nachman. She came in front of Rav Nachman, and Amrulay, she told Rav Nachman, Reish Galusa, the Kul Rabbanon, the Reish Galusa. The Reish Galusa, the head of the Babylonian exile. And all the people, all the Rabbeim that were in his sukkah, the Sukkah Gezula Haviyasri, the sitting in a stolen sukkah. What happened was, the Avodim of the Reish Galusa, we threw at Shas, they were difficult people. They took her eitzim, they built a sukkah. So they built a sukkah. So what's the halacha? You can pay her back, but it's a good sukkah. Sav li ashkech bei Rav Nachman. She was screaming that the sukkah is gesula. Rav Nachman didn't listen to her. Amrulei Isisa. Amrulei. She tested Rav Nachman. This is a very funny lashon, guys. Isisa da havilei lahavua tlas mei v'tamni sari avde. This maiden, me, who is the daughter of whose father had 313 servants. Samsa Kamaicha is yelling in front of you, and you're not listening to her. Okay, we'll see in a second what this means. So Amalahu Rav Nachman told the Talmidim, Pa'isihi, she's a hada, she's a crier. You only have demei eitzim. So it's very funny lashon, right? What exactly is that 318? So some Seif and the Aruch LaNer both say a very, very interesting pshat, guys. It's based upon a Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara in Chulin says, Kasha Pei Tesam and Aleph. Kasha Gezel Hanechal. We know there's a din of Veheshavas Exela. So let's say you steal a cowboy steak. Steal a cowboy steak and you eat it. So Kasha Gezel Hanechal. Shafilat Sadiq and Gemurim Einam Yichel Machzira. Even Sadiq and Gemurim are not able to go ahead and return it. Shnema ba'Avram. Avram says, Avram v'ino l'shalom shalom l'melch Sidayim v'lodai rak asher achlu hana'orim v'chelik hanoshim asher holchu iti. Okay, so that's a little background. Avram Avinu in Perik Yadalit in Bereshis goes to war against the 4 kings. The 4 kings had beaten up the 5 kings, and among the 5 kings was Melech Sodom, and Lot was captured because Lot was living in Sodom. After being victorious in the battle, and Avram comes back out of the battle, the Melech Sodom greets him, and he says, right? He says, "You take all the spoils of war and give me back my people." And Avram says the famous words, "Em lakachti misroichnal." I won't take what from a sroichnal. I won't take a sushtap. I won't take anything. And he says, "Bilodai," with the exception of what the Ne'orim ate. Now, who are the Ne'orim? So the Ne'orim are Honor, Eshkol, and Mamre. And other people came along to battle. They ate food. So Avram says, I'm giving you back everything with the exception of what they ate. Why did Avram, what's the proof from over here? Avram would have given back even that, because Avram wanted to restore everything, because everything had a shame gezel on it. So Avram said, no, the only thing I'm not returning to you is that, because he wanted to take off the shame gezel. Everything else you could have back. But what they ate, okay, that's mine. You're right. You wanted to give me everything. What they ate, I'll agree that what it's mine. Why was Avram so makbid to say it's mine? Because he wanted to show that it was stolen. You couldn't return it. So Memela, if it was his, it wasn't stolen. That's what it's saying. Again, the fact that he's telling them, listen, you want to give me everything. I don't want anything except what they ate. Why was he so makbid to say except what they ate? Because he didn't want to be a shame gezel on it. If it's his, there's not gezel. Okay, so very geschmack. Here's the dialogue now between the Isha. Avram goes to battle, guys, with 380 men. Pashut, according to the Torah, there's 380 men. Why is she saying, let's say the daughter of Avram Avinu? She said the daughter of the person who had 318 servants. Meaning, this din of gezel, there's a din of return of the Heshvaz Gzela that they made a takana, is only a big thing. It's too hard to return. How could you possibly return what they ate? So when you have 318 men and some of them ate something, I can't return it. Then we have the din of takanas hamerish, the takana of what? Of paying back money. I'm a little woman. They stole what? They stole little nothing from me. There's no halacha of gezel eitzim over there. They should have to give me back the eitzim and not the money. And Rabbi Nachman wasn't listening to whatsoever. No, lay plug. There's no difference. Once they made a takana, they wanted people to be able to return something, to be chayzer b'tshuva. They didn't make a difference. It was a lot of people or a little people. And that's the dialogue she brought in Avram Avinu with the 318 to say the halacha of takanas hashavim is only by a lot of people. And Rav Nachman's answer by not answering her and telling the Talmidim that she was a crier is telling him no. The din of takanas hashavim to facilitate returning something, meaning money. If I can't return, again, you built in the building, you built something in the building. You'll never do tshuva because you can't get it out. it's going to be too hard to get out. So that Takanas Hashavim was even for small people. That's the dialogue, and that's what explains why she said that. Continues the Gemara Vaita. Amravina, Hai Kishura de Matalalta, the Gezula, if you have a stolen beam in a sukkah, they made a takana because of the takanas meirish. The takanas meirish, guys, again, that's the takana we're speaking about over here. That the Heshav as Gazela Shegozal, they made a takana where it's too difficult to go ahead on and return. It's enough to give money. So it applies to a sukkah also. Pshita, Maishname Eitzim. Why would a beam be different than wood? And just like wood, it applied to a beam. So Madatema Eitzim Shchichi, Abel Haile Shchichi, Emaloi Kamash Malan. It's very easy to buy wood. So very good. You don't have to return the wood. Give them money, let her buy wood. On a beam, on the other hand, seemed to be about a more scarce. So therefore, you would think that the kind of giving money does not apply to what? To the beam, because the beam is what is scarce, and therefore you'd have to give back the beam. Kamash Malon, the takana of a shavim, the takana resh applies to the beam as well. Now, Kamash Malon. Now, Hani Mili, when don't you have to return it? That's Migav Shiva. That's during the 7 days, because during the 7 days, it's considered kfa. Guys, during the 7 days, it's considered kava, it's considered set. Right? During the 7 days. Avalabasa Shiva, after 7 days, Hadabaina, then you can return it back. Because now no longer is it kva. The Chabe Betina, and let's say you put it in the ground, the beam, you used it for a wall, and it's hard to get out. I feel Lacha Shivanami, even after the 7 days of Sukkah is over, Yov Lei Demei, you can pay a what value, and you don't have to pay for the beam itself. Okay? Tana, Yovesh Puzzle. Doesn't say why, it says a Yovesh, something that's dry is puzzle. Rabbi Yehuda Machshe, Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher. Amarava, Machloikis, whether that Yovesh is puzzle and kosher is by Lulav. The Rabbanan Savri Makshinan Lulav the Esrig. Again, what does it say in the Torah? Pre-Eitz Hada the Kapais Tamarim. Pre-Eitz Hada is the Esrig. It says the word Hada by Esrig. Right next to it is the word Kapais Tamarim, which is a Lulav. Says the Chachamim, I make a hekesh between the Esrig, the Lulav, and the Esrig. Just like an Esrig, you need Hadar, you need beauty. So too, by Lulav, you need beauty. And therefore, a dried out Lulav is not beautiful, therefore it's not kosher. Ma esrig b'yihadar, af lulav b'yihadar. Rabbi Yehuda Savar loy makshinan lulav the esrig. I don't make a hekeshuat lulav, right? We don't make the esrig. What? Because a lulav is a kapos. It's something that's tied, and an esrig is a pre. So good, they're next to each other, but they have nothing to do with each other. One's a pre, and one is a bound palm shoot. So it doesn't drive. So therefore, that's the machloikas over here. Like the chachamim, just like you need a beautiful esrig, you need a beautiful lulav. Therefore, you have just puzzle. Like Rabbi Yeshua, you don't make the hekish. You only need hodar by an esrig. You do not need hodar by a lulav. Fred the Gemara of Rabbi Yehuda Sava loy makshina lulav esrig. You don't. Aval esrig dibi akol hodar. I'm sorry. Aval esrig dibi akol hodar bi'inen. By esrig, everyone says what you need hodar. Fred the Gemara belulav loy boy Rabbi Yehuda hodar. Belulav does not have hodar. But Tanan Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Yagdenu mil maila. Guys, we said nifritu olav. As we'll see tomorrow, as if the leaves of the lulav spread out, it's kosher. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to tie them together. Why do you have to tie them together? It must be because of you need hadar. Says the Gemara. My time alam mishum debayi hadar like keditani time Rabbi Yehuda imem mishum tarfin kapos tamarim kafos. Right? It should be what tied. In other words, the lulav should not be separate. It should be like this. We put our rings around the lulav because it should be together, but not because of hadar, but because the word of kapos tamarim, kapos means like lashon of kafos, tied, but not because you need hadar. Said the Gemara, hadar. Again, we challenge Rabbi Yehuda. Does Rabbi Yehuda not require hadar by lulav that he says a lulav that's yavesh is pasul? But Tanan in oidim es a lulav ela b'minei b'minai. You only uged a lulav with its min, only use something from a palm tree. Did Rabbi Yehuda, my time the boy hadar. Can you imagine you put a string or a rubber band around? That's not going to work. Beautiful means it should be the same thing. So therefore, don't you see he needs hadar? Says Amarava, says Rava, afilu b'siv, v'afilu be'ikra dedikla, right? Light. My time, the hammer of I feel b'siv, I feel b'ikra the dikla. You know, it doesn't love mina, even the siv and ikra the dikla, these are different parts of the tree. You know, so it doesn't need the leaf of the lulav itself. Well, my time of the Rabbi Yehuda, what's the reason you need not that and nothing else? Hasam the kasava lulav tzarich eged, v'imaisamina achrina havi lechamisha minim. Okay, the reason why you can't use something else is because he holds Rabbi Yehuda that you need the hashanta tied together. You need the hadas and the ravis tied with the lulav. If you're going to put something else in there, that'll be a fifth min. So therefore, mina, you use a lulav, a strand of a lulav, or something else from the tree to make sure that it's not a separate entity. Okay, so therefore, Machlokes Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda, whereby Rabbi Yehuda says a dried out lulav is kasha. Estrig, mashma, everyone says you need hadar, because it says creates hadar, that even Rabbi Yehuda would be moida, that an estrig you need hadar. Fred the Gemara, ube estrig mi boy Rabbi Yehuda hadar? By estrig, does Rabbi Yehuda require hadar? Vatanya, arba minim sheba lulav, the four minim of the lulav, kishem shein paischin behem, just like you can't take less than four, kachem esifin aleim, you can't take more than four. Loy matzah estrig. Okay, we're going to go over this Bryce in a second. We're just going to ask a question from it, but we can go over Bryce again. We're leading up to the question that l'chari you do not require hadar by a lulav. We're leading up to a question you do not need hadar by a lulav. Right? Lo matzah esrig. If you don't find an esrig, lo yavi lo parish. You shouldn't bring a quince. V'lo rimayin nor a pomegranate. V'lo davracha nor anything else. You hear this, guys? You don't have an esrig. You don't have an esrig. So you don't substitute a quince or a pomegranate or an apple or anything else. Okay? Kimushin, if it's withered, ksherin, yeveshin, if it's very dry, psulin. Yudoima af yeveshim, akosha. Now the half a mina is, guys, this is going on an esrik. For Amr Rabbi Yehuda, Maisa, there was a Maisa Amid Beis. The Bnei Krachim, there was a Maisa in the Bnei Krachim, showing Marishin es l'veim lebnei bneihem. The boondocks, they left over as a, well, Krach is not the boondock, Kfar is a boondock, Krachim is a large city. They were Moirish, they love him to their children. Amru loy misham raya. So he wanted to show that obviously if he was Moirish, they were old, correct? Guys, if you inherited Arba Minim from year to year, they must be very old. So Rabbi Yehuda wants to prove that what? That even Yeveshim are kosher. So Amru loy, they told Rabbi Yehuda, misham raya, there's no raya from there. Ain't shasad chak raya. Shasad chak is not a raya. Okay, now, we'll get back to this in a second. Kitani miyas, nonetheless, we learned, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, af yeveshim ksherim, even yeveshim akosha. My lava esrig is not going on an esrig, lo ya lulav. An esrig, you need hadar, lulav, you not need hadar. Now, what does it mean over here that af shasat chak raya? What does that mean? Meaning, b'shasat chak, you can use dried out things? The answer is yes, you could. Can you make a bracha on it? Says the Rambam, no. Is it puzzle? It's puzzle. Says the Ravid, no, the Ravid says that it's kosher. Says the Ravid, no, Ravid says you don't make a bracha on this. And you're not mekayim the mitzvah. And the whole reason you're doing this, guys, is that you shouldn't forget the din of Arba Minim. But why in the world would you go ahead and use something that's not the 4 minim? Because the answer is, if you don't do it that year, it may lead. Think about it, fellas. You don't realize how blessed we are and easy for us to get Arba Minim. Think about in ancient times, faraway places. It wasn't, if you live in more in Eretz Yisrael. I mean, think about it. Oh, it's so nice, Steve. Little love. Okay, all recorded. Anyway, so they have, yeah. Think about it. You know, the question Eisenhower, when he met the Kloisenberger Rebbe, he asked him, he gave him a blessing and everything. And he said, Rabbi, what can I do for you? And he says, get me Dalet Minim. And he sent someone to Italy to fly over. They brought a bunch set of Dalet Minim. The first thing he did. So you can imagine, if Dalet Minim is so hard to come by, you can imagine a few years go by, it could be forgotten. So go ahead and take them, even if you're not yotze to the mitzvah. At least it's establishing a zecher Says the Ravid that you shouldn't forget it. That's a very interesting thing that you wouldn't think about normally. That's the Ravid. I have written over here the Rosh. He says no. He says the bigger Chiddush. He says Yavesh, the psul of Yavesh is only if you have a better one than that. When is Yavesh pasul? If I don't have a better lulav. If I have a better lulav. If I don't have a better lulav, that's my lulav. You can make a bracha on it. I wonder what the halacha is. I wonder what the halacha is. Give me 2 seconds. I want. Even the first day, b'shas hadchak, noitlin lulav yavesh u'mevorchen alav. B'shas hadchak, if you have nothing better, you can take it and make a bracha on it. Because of Ritva, shahani mili psule hadar. Dafka if the psul is hadar. Aval kol she psulim megufoy. If they, let's example, let's say we're going to learn tomorrow all the psulim in the lulav, like it's nifritzu. Or if it's the tiyomis is cut, then not. So it's mavur like this. This din that we said they will moirish them lulavim and other dalaminim is only when the problem was in hadar. So it's very geshmak because we said hadar, according to most poskim, is not possible at all. It's a b'di'eved. Lichatchila, it should be hadar. It should be beautiful. But if it's not, then I can make a bracha on that, says the Ritva. So Yavesh, which is, what's the psul of Yavesh? It's not intrinsically wrong. It's a lulav. It has, the leaves are together. The tiyomis, as we're going to see tomorrow, the twin part in the middle is together. So it's not a pasul lulav. It's not a hadar lulav. It's not a shena lulav. It's not a nice lulav. But it's a lulav. Then b'shas adchak will let you make a bracha. So, however, if in fact there's another problem, and even if that is going to lead to a lack of zeicha that you won't remember what to do, then again, maybe you might use it, but you will make a bracha on it. You will make a bracha on it. Okay, I don't know. I'm quoting Shoinim. I didn't look up the halacha. Okay, back in the Gemara. Going back over that brisa, Amamar. Going back over that interesting brisa. Amamar, kashem shem poisne mehem. Now pshita, so you can use more or less. A lulav needs an eged, so you're going to put it together. So whatever you have in the lulav is going to be in the lulav. Whatever is not going to be in the lulav is going to be off the lulav. And therefore, what? If there's no bal taisif, kamash one, there is bal taisif, despite the fact that it's not connected to the lulav. Amamar loymatzi esrig loyava loyrimav loyparish. You can't use a quince, you can't use a pomegranate. Pshita, of course not. You have to use an esrig. Some other Tamil Lysi use that. Bring it. That you shouldn't forget that there's such a thing called an esrig. Again, the same concept. This was what? Aryeh's problem. Right? Aryeh, you had the problem with the lulav. But you have an answer by hadar. But your problem by Remind, by esrig, tak is the problem. If you use a quince, people might think that what? That's what you do. You use a quince. Now, guys, it's Masha from this Gemara. Are you doing nothing or you're bringing the other three? How are you learning Pshat in the Gemara? I'll read it again. Amamar. Loi motza esrig, loi yavi, you should not bring, loi Remind, v'loi parish, loi davar acher. So what's pshat? You're not doing anything, or you're bringing the lulav hadassim ne'aravis without esrog. Which one?
Nothing.
I would say I would disagree with you. I would disagree with you. It's because look at the lashon. Lo imatza esrog. If you don't find an esrog, then don't bring another thing. Mashma, don't bring another thing, but bring the lulav hadassim ne'aravis. Don't bring something in place of the esrog, guys. But the other three things you do bring, right? This is you're supposed to bobblehead now, right?
Yeah.
Correct. It's only referring to the asterisk.
But you'd bring the other three.
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a kasha for you. What about lo yigra? What about, you just told me you can't bring more, you can't bring less.
Or nothing.
You guys hear the kasha? You just told me you need 4, not less than 4, not more than 4. And now the Gemara is saying, if you don't have an esrog, bring the other 3. Says the Turi Even, guys, you hear the kasha. It's
not saying bring the other 3 instead of the esrog. You're going to bring it as part of the whole package, and now you have one part of it that isn't good. The esrog is not good, but the other 3 were there all along.
Meya, I don't have an esrog, Meya. I'm bringing 3 other things.
Yeah, but you bought a set, and you don't have an esrog.
I know, I didn't buy a set. I forget buying. Can I go ahead, use the other 3 without an esrog? Yes or no?
No.
No, that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says you could. That's why I was hacking you.
You're being medayik that, but
I'm being medayik that because it's the correct diak.
okay, I'm not debating that, but
I tend to. I think you are
why
debating.
do you have a havamina that you can only bring 1 min? So that's what I don't understand.
Again, it's saying don't bring the other ones. What's the havamina? That you should bring the other ones to have a total of 4. Kamash Malon, you don't bring it. Why? Because you're worried about the future. If not that worried, you'd bring it. If not that worried, you'd bring it. So mashma, you're bringing the other 3, and you're not bringing the esrog because you're worried about the future. Okay, we're going weiter. Now, here's the kasha. It's mashma that what? That you do this even though l'chayra, we just said right? You shouldn't go reya, you shouldn't take away. So listen to a very big aside. It's the Turi Even in Rosh Hashanah Daf Tez Zayin. The Turi Even is the Shagas Aryeh, the Gevuras Ari. He says the following: when do we say lo yigra? Is when you yotze the mitzvah. If in the performance of a mitzvah you're being yotze the mitzvah and you're being goyreya, don't do it. Conversely, if you're not yotze the mitzvah, it's not a problem. I'll give you an example. The halacha is you need 4 sprinklings of dam by a carbon chatas, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you do 1, we have machloikas whether you yotze or not. One man says you yotze, the other one says it's lo yigra. Why there? Because I'd be yotze with that 1. So lo yigra comes into play when I'm yotze my mitzvah. When I'm not yotze my mitzvah, then it doesn't come into play. So over here, everyone clearly says you're not yotze the mitzvah. You're only doing it that you shouldn't forget how to do it. And the reason why you're not using an esrog is because you're worried about the future. But again, you're not yotze the mitzvah. So therefore, there's no problem of lo yigareh. Says the Gemara weiter. Okay. Tashma. Esrog ayashin, puzzle. An old esrog is puzzle. Rabbi Yehuda machshir. Rabbi Yehuda says what? It's machshir. It's mashma, you don't need hadar. 1 second. Didn't Rava say that you need hadar in Rabbi Yehuda? Tiyufta the Rava tiyufta. It's an upshlag in Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda does not require hadar by lulav. Rabbi Yehuda does not require hadar by esrog. We're going to have to answer up. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with the pasuk? It says pre-eitz hadar, guys, right? Guys, it says it openly, pre-eitz hadar by esrog. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with that? Like boy hadar v'tanan, hayoruk kikarsi, if it's hayoruk kikarsi, if it's green, Reb Meir machshir Rabbi Yehuda pasuk. Now, there's a big taisus over here, and I'm sure you all have your books and you're dying to use it. So let's break out the book. Page 95. Mary, you got the book? You're going to get the book when we finish Shas. That's when you get the book. Green. Very green like that. Taisus brings other opinions. Turn the page. Taisus brings other opinions about the color. Right? Whether it's this green, this blue. I never saw a blue esrog like that. And of course, this. So we have green esrogim, guys, right? But our green esrogim are turning yellow. This is a green esrig that remains green. It doesn't return. Okay, that's the difference. So now, why is Rabbi Yehuda say it's puzzle, right? Don't you need hadar? It says, it's not, the peri is not complete. It's not ripe. It's not going to be finished. Right? Since the peri is not going to be finished, then therefore what? It's puzzle. But not because of what of, it's not considered an esrog, I guess. It's not considered an esrog. Toshma, sheer esrog, cotton, Reb Meir Omer, ke'ega is the size of a nut. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kebeitza, the size of an egg. La mishum debayi hadar, it doesn't need a larger esrog because you need hadar. Because if it's so small, it's not gama pira. Tashma, ubegadol, what's the largest size of an esrog? You can hold two in one hand, right? Check this out, guys. Page 97. Two in one hand. How about this one? One in two hands. That's the Meki Bektim of Esroigim, Benji.
It's for Elvin Hayes.
Okay, so now, Rabbi Yehuda says Kibeitza, La Mishum the Bayhada, no, Tashma Magadol Kadesh Yochas Shnaim Biyada Achas to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosiyam Afilu Echa B'Shtei Yadav. My time La Mishum the Bayhadar, and if it's too large, it's not Hadar. Like Kibin Amarava Lulav Biyamin V'Eser B'Smail, since you have to hold the lulav in the right hand because it has the other two meaning with it. If you're left-handed, you hold it in your left hand. Zimna the machap machlile, you're going to switch around, put the lulav in the left and the esrog in the right. V'yasi, as you're going to switch them back and forth. V'yasi le'afchoniu, and it's going to fall down the esrog v'asi lefsule. Therefore, the reason why he minimizes the size of the esrog just for practical reasons to make it more manageable, rather than what? Rather than because of hadar, the size. Rabbi Yehuda haksiv hadar. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with guys with the pasuk pre-eitz hadar? Hahu hadar be'ilane mishana l'shana. This means it stays on the tree from year to year. It pre-eitz hadar. Harda, it lives. Not from the lesson of beauty, but lesson of dira, that it lives. Okay, we'll stop over here till tomorrow. But again, don't leave. I have an announcement to make. Tomorrow.